Hey everyone, ready for another deep dive?
Always. What are we looking at today?
Well, we're just a few weeks out from a big primary election in Florida.
Oh, yeah. Which one?
Florida's 6th Congressional District. The primary is January 28th.
Okay, so that's coming right up.
It is, and this one is especially interesting because the seat is open.
What do you mean, someone retiring?
Yeah, Congressman Michael Waltz is leaving the seat open.
Interesting. So kind of a fresh start for the district.
Exactly. And there are a lot of eyes on one candidate in particular, Aaron Baker.
What's so special about him?
Well, I've been looking over his website, Aaron4FL6.
Always good to go straight to the source. What have you found?
It's really interesting. He's got some strong ideas about keeping Florida on the right track. We're going to break down his background, what he's promising, and really try to get a sense of who he is as a candidate.
Sounds like a good plan. Where do we start?
I think the best place to start is with Aaron Baker himself. Seems like a true Florida man, born and raised there.
Small town roots.
Well, he calls Sorrento home now. But he's been involved in all kinds of campaigns over the years, even outside of Florida.
Oh, like what?
He was involved in early voting efforts in Pennsylvania, actually, a key swing state. Shows you he's got his eye on the bigger picture.
Right. Not just focused on his own backyard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he's very clear about what drives him serving the community. He even tells a story on his website about Hurricane Milton, when it made landfall.
Wow. Yeah, I remember that one. Scary stuff.
Well, he talks about watching it happen and just feeling this urge to step up and help.
Powerful moment for him.
It was. He calls it a turning point, and it really comes through in how he talks about public service. And one other thing you should know, he's a big admirer of President Trump.
Interesting.
Yeah, he believes strongly in the Make America Great Again movement and sees those policies as a model for success. He wants to bring those ideas to Florida's 6th District.
Okay, so his background and his influences are pretty clear. But what about his actual plans? What's he focusing on in this campaign?
So he lays out 9 key areas he wants to tackle. And he really goes for the big issues right off the bat.
Oh, for sure.
Economic recovery, inflation, and regulation. Things everyone's thinking about right now.
Smart move. People want to know he understands what they're going through.
Exactly. And he's very clear about his approach. He thinks President Trump had it right when it came to deregulation and building a strong economy.
Wants to bring back those good times, huh?
He does, and he gets specific about how those policies help people. For example, he talks about energy costs being lower under President Trump. Says families had more money in their pockets.
People can relate to that.
And he breaks down how inflation is hitting people right now. Like, did you know the average weekly grocery bill has gone up by $70?
Wow, that's a lot. No wonder people are feeling it.
And he doesn't just talk about the problems. He offers solutions. Says that by reducing inflation and regulations, especially in things like energy and housing, Floridians could save over $1,000 each month.
That's a big promise.
It is. He's not shy about making bold statements. He even says the federal government is not the solution to our problems. The federal government is the problem.
Strong words.
They are. Shows you where he stands on the role of government. But enough about the economy for now. Let's move on to something that's super important to families. Education.
Okay, what's his take on that?
He's all about giving states more control over education. Believes Florida schools have what it takes to be the best in the country.
Local control, that's a big one for a lot of people.
It is. And he's passionate about early learning. Wants to work with folks at the community level, including faith leaders, to make sure every kid has access to quality early education.
Bringing faith into it, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's a big part of his approach. But his ultimate goal is to abolish the Department of Education and give that power back to the states.
Wow, that's a long-term vision.
It is. And on top of that, he's a huge supporter of vocational training, for kids who aren't going the college route.
Yeah, makes sense. Not everyone needs a 4-year degree.
Exactly. He wants more young people to learn skills in healthcare, technology, trades, things that lead to good jobs right out of school. And get this, he even thinks community college should be free.
Free? That's a bold idea.
It is, but he sees it as an investment in Florida's future. Says a well-educated workforce is worth the cost.
I'm impressed. He's really covering a lot of ground here. What do you think so far?
I'm really intrigued. It's clear he's thought deeply about these issues and isn't afraid to put forward some bold ideas.
I agree. He seems to be tapping into a lot of concerns that are resonating with voters right now.
Absolutely. But we've only just begun to explore his platform. When we come back, we'll dive into his views on Social Security and healthcare. Those are big ones, especially for seniors.
So he's got big ideas, but what about the details? Does he just talk in generalities or does he actually get specific?
Oh, no, he gets into the nitty-gritty, which I really appreciate, especially when it comes to Social Security and healthcare. Those are big issues for a lot of voters.
Absolutely. People want to know exactly where he stands.
Right, and he doesn't shy away from it. Like with Social Security, he has this interesting idea about linking benefits to interest rates on government bonds.
Oh, wow. I haven't heard that one before. How would that work?
Basically, he's saying seniors deserve a return on their investment in Social Security, right?
Makes sense.
So he wants to tie that return to what the government is paying bondholders.
So if interest rates go up, their benefits would increase too.
Exactly. And to make sure seniors aren't left guessing, he wants to peg the increase to the 30-year bond rate at the end of each November.
Interesting. So it would be predictable and consistent?
Yes, and he wants to write it into federal law.
Wow, that's a bold move.
Yeah,
He's really advocating for seniors there.
he is. And on Medicare, his stance is crystal clear. No cuts to Medicare, period.
Yeah, that's a big one for a lot of people. They rely on that program.
He gets it. He knows how important it is for millions of seniors. But he doesn't stop there. He recognizes that healthcare is bigger than just Medicare.
What else is he focused on?
Well, he's concerned about the lack of doctors in some areas, especially general practitioners, in those underserved, more rural communities.
That's a real problem in a lot of places. Hard to get access to care when there aren't enough doctors around.
And he's also got some strong thoughts about prescription drug costs. Thinks Americans are paying way too much,
Who doesn't?
right? So he wants to find ways to bring those costs down. And he's even talking about bringing more drug manufacturing back to the U.S., building up that infrastructure here.
So he's thinking long-term about solutions, not just quick fixes.
Exactly. And he doesn't forget about mental health either. He talks about the need for more support services, especially for young people. And he really emphasizes the role of families, churches, communities, those support networks.
Bringing people together, that's a common thread I'm noticing.
Definitely. Okay, ready to switch gears a bit.
Sure, what's next?
Let's talk about the environment, infrastructure development, those kinds of things. He starts with a story about a homeowner trying to rebuild after Hurricane Ian.
Oh, man. I can only imagine the struggles after that storm.
Well, this homeowner was having a terrible time getting a permit to rebuild because of all the environmental regulations.
I see where he's going with this. Cutting through red tape.
Exactly. He wants a more common sense approach to environmental protection. Not that he's against protecting the environment, of course.
Right, just wants to make it less burdensome for people.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
He's all about finding that balance between protecting our resources and allowing for responsible development and economic growth. He even talks about reasonable government regulation.
Yeah, finding that middle ground is key.
And when it comes to energy, he's for an all-of-the-above approach. Domestic production, renewables, nuclear energy. He's even open to critical mineral mining.
So anything that keeps the lights on and keeps energy affordable.
Exactly. He even uses the phrase, make energy affordable again.
Clever. Tapping into that familiar message.
It works, right? But here's something you might not expect. He's really focused on expanding airport access in the district.
Airport access. Oh, that's not usually a top-tier issue.
I know, right? But he makes a good case. He points out that a lot of people in the district live closer to smaller airports like Daytona Beach or Ocala.
Yeah, but they probably don't have as many flights.
Exactly. So people end up driving all the way to Orlando International because those regional airports have fewer options and higher fares.
Makes sense. It's about convenience and cost.
Right, and he sees a chance to boost those local economies too. So he's proposing working with Volusia County to expand Daytona Beach Airport, attract more commercial flights, even offer tax breaks to airlines. He's got a goal: 20 daily incoming flights to Daytona by July 2026.
Specific and ambitious. I like it. Okay, what else is on his agenda?
Let's talk about something that always gets people fired up.
Yep.
Gun rights and gun safety.
Always a hot topic.
No doubt. But Aaron Baker is very clear about where he stands. He's a strong supporter of the Second Amendment. Quotes it right on his website. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
Leaves no room for interpretation there.
Nope. But he does recognize that finding common ground on this issue is tough.
Yeah, it's so divisive.
It is. But he does see one area where progress can be made: gun safety education.
Okay, so promoting responsible gun ownership.
Exactly. He wants to use federal funding to offer free gun safety classes to anyone who wants them.
Interesting. Teaches people how to handle firearms safely and responsibly.
Right. It's about enhancing safety without infringing on those Second Amendment rights.
Makes sense. So what's next?
Okay, let's move on to criminal justice and law enforcement. This is another area where he has strong opinions.
Such as?
Well, he's all about supporting law enforcement officers. Believes they need the resources and tools to do their job safely and effectively.
Okay, so backing the blue.
Very much so. And he's concerned about what he sees as efforts to defund the police. He's specifically critical of President Biden's executive order that limits access to surplus military equipment for law enforcement.
Interesting, so he's pushing back against that trend.
He is. He even proposes amendments to an existing bill, the Life-Saving Gear for Police Act, to further support law enforcement. He wants to leave decisions about law enforcement tactics to the states and local governments, not the feds.
So, more local control again?
Exactly. But it's not just about being tough on crime. He also talks about the need for criminal justice reform, making sure the system is fair, that things like race or income or political beliefs don't affect how people are treated.
Finding that balance between safety and fairness.
Right. And he wants to help police departments attract and keep good officers. He knows it's a tough job with a lot of negativity around it. He even talks about working with faith leaders to improve the relationship between law enforcement and the community.
Building bridges, bringing people together. He's got a real knack for that.
He does. Okay, ready for something a little different?
Always.
Let's talk about economic opportunity and job creation. He's got some out-of-the-box ideas in this area.
Like,
Get this. He wants to give homes currently managed by HUD to the people living in them. Transfer that ownership.
wow, that's a radical idea.
It is, right.
Yeah.
But he's a big believer in home ownership, thinks it empowers people and helps break cycles of poverty.
Interesting approach. So it's about more than just putting a roof over someone's head.
Exactly. And he also wants to expand economic development zones to attract businesses, make it easier for people to start their own businesses. He even suggests an SBA office in every congressional district.
More government involvement there. I thought he was all about limited government.
He is, but he sees this as an investment in small businesses and job creation. It's about empowering people to build their own success.
I can see the appeal in that.
And once again, he brings it back to the community, talks about working with faith-based groups to create after-school programs that teach kids values like hard work and responsibility.
So it's not just about handouts. It's about building character and giving people the tools to succeed.
Exactly. Okay, so we've covered 8 of his 9 key platform points. We've gone from the economy and education to healthcare, the environment, gun rights, criminal justice, and now economic opportunity.
It's a lot to take in, but he seems to have a pretty clear and consistent vision.
He does. But we can't forget about the global stage. When we come back, we'll dive into the final piece of the puzzle, his stance on foreign policy. And we're back. We've talked a lot about Aaron Baker's plans for Florida's 6th District, but the world doesn't stop at the state line.
Definitely not. Foreign policy matters too. What's his take on all that?
Well, let me tell you, he doesn't hold back here either. He's very clear. America needs to be a leader in the world again.
Sensing a theme here. Strong leadership.
Absolutely. He's not happy with how things are going right now on the global stage, thinks things have gone downhill since 2020, sees it as a real departure from the peace and prosperity we had before.
Interesting. So how does he propose to fix it?
Well, he's a big fan of how President Trump handled foreign policy, points to things like the Abraham Accords.
Yeah, those were pretty historic, getting Israel and some Arab nations to normalize relations.
Exactly. He sees that as a model for the kind of diplomacy America should be pursuing.
So, peace through strength.
You could say that. He's a strong supporter of Israel, no doubt about it. Believes the U.S. should always have their back.
Unwavering support.
Well, almost. He does draw the line at nuclear weapons. Says supporting Israel shouldn't extend to that.
So there are limits even to that strong alliance.
Right. He's not afraid to make distinctions. And he's open to expanding the Abraham Accords, even suggests Palestine could be included.
Really? But that conflict seems so intractable.
He acknowledges it's tough, but he says if Palestine wants to be a part of the future, they need to show they're serious about peace. Even says they shouldn't play with fire or risk being left behind by history.
Strong words.
They are. Okay, let's shift gears to the Pacific. China's being pretty aggressive, especially towards Taiwan.
Yeah, that's a big concern. What's his plan there?
He's all about showing strength. Wants to expand naval bases in Japan and even restart the U.S.-Taiwan Defense Command.
Wow, that's a pretty big statement. A lot of resources involved there.
He knows it, but he thinks it's necessary to keep up with China's military buildup.
So how does he propose to pay for all this?
Okay, this is where it gets interesting. He actually has a pretty creative idea. Remembers the Lend-Lease Act from World War II.
Vaguely. Wasn't that how the U.S. helped the Allies before officially joining the war?
Exactly. Well, he wants to do something similar with Taiwan and Japan. Proposes a 100-year lease agreement. They get access to U.S. technology, and in return, they pay for their own defense.
Interesting. Kind of win-win, right? They get the protection they need, and the U.S. shares the burden.
Exactly. Okay, now for the big one, Ukraine.
Yeah, that's been a tough situation for everyone.
No kidding. And Baker's pretty clear about where he stands, doesn't think we should send more weapons or money, believes that President Trump couldn't negotiate a peace deal.
He's confident about that, huh?
He is. Doesn't see U.S. troops getting involved, though. And he acknowledges that any peace is going to involve compromises from both sides, even suggests some short-term sanctions on Russia, lifted once a deal is reached.
So carrots and sticks. Pressure and incentives.
Exactly. And what about NATO? Big question mark for a lot of people.
Right. America's commitment to that alliance has been a hot topic for years.
He's in favor of supporting NATO, but he wants all the member countries to contribute their fair share. You know, that 2% of their GDP to defense. He sees that as the absolute minimum.
Right. That target has been a source of tension for a while. Some countries haven't been meeting it.
And he has a plan for that, too. Says countries that can't afford the 2% could issue bonds that other NATO members could buy.
Interesting idea. So it's about sharing the financial responsibility, making sure everyone is pulling their weight.
Exactly. Okay, last one. Iran. Always a tricky one.
Yeah, lots of tension there.
He's all about hitting them where it hurts. Their finances. Wants to make it as hard as possible for them to fund things that destabilize the region. Admits cutting them off completely is probably impossible.
So make it as difficult as possible, squeeze them financially.
Right. He wraps up his foreign policy outlook by emphasizing two things: strengthening our defenses and building strong partnerships to prevent future conflicts. He even ends with a pretty bold statement. Take note, world. The United States is back.
Wow. He's definitely sending a message of strength and a return to a more assertive role on the world stage.
He is. So there you have it. We've really dug deep into Aaron Baker, his background, what he wants to do for Florida's 6th, and his bold approach to foreign policy.
It's been quite a journey. From the economy to education, healthcare to national security, he's laid out a comprehensive plan, that's for sure.
He has. And it's clear he's passionate about serving his community and making America a leader in the world again. But remember, folks, this is just one candidate's perspective.
Absolutely. It's important to do your own research, look at all the candidates in this race, and then make your voice heard on January 28th.
That's right. The primary is just a few weeks away. The
Right.
future of Florida's 6th District is in your hands. So get informed, get engaged, and make your vote count.